Hey y'all, so welcome back to the next chapter of our Harry Potter deep dive. We're on the Sorcerer's Stone, chapter 5, The Keeper of the Keys. And the first sentence is just boom. And I think that's pretty apt. So in this chapter, this is where Hagrid comes to the shack and basically tells Harry that he's a wizard and has that iconic line. So Hagrid comes in, he's completely giant, he knocks off the door, he puts it back on the door hinges, kind of puts it back in place, and of course Dursley is telling him to leave, and he just basically ignores him. He tells Harry that last time I saw you, you was only a baby. You look a lot like your dad, but you've got your mum's eyes. And I think this is probably the first time Harry has ever heard anything nice about his parents said to him. And I really think about that moment a lot because I'm so sure of it. I don't think Aunt Petunia and Uncle Vernon would have never said anything nice about his parents, and nobody else knew them. And I can't imagine Harry's thought or, his emotions at hearing something nice about his parents for the first time in his life. So the other thing is Hagrid brings Harry a birthday cake, and it says, "Happy birthday, Harry." It's kind of squashed. And I honestly feel like this is probably Harry's first real nice gift that wasn't given to him out of just having to buy him something at the zoo or, something. I think this is probably his first real gift, is this simple birthday cake that Hagrid brings him. So Hagrid introduces himself as Keeper of Keys and Grounds at Hogwarts. Hagrid is trying to talk to Harry about Hogwarts, and Harry has no idea about Hogwarts. And this bothers me. This is a quibble I have with Dumbledore. I have plenty of them. Didn't he ever think to tell Hagrid what Hagrid might be walking into going to this shack? Didn't Dumbledore say, "Hey Hagrid, they're probably not treating him very well and he probably doesn't know anything about being a wizard. Just a heads up, good luck." Nothing. It's frustrating. So he finally starts telling Harry that he's a wizard. The Dursleys are, of course, telling him, "We're refusing to let you tell him. We don't want him to know," just all these things. And Hagrid says, "Harry, you're a wizard," which I think is funny because it's exactly backwards of how the iconic line, because everybody says, "You're a wizard, Harry," like that. They say it from the movie, but it's actually backwards in the book. Hagrid gives Harry a copy of the letter, and, basically saying that he's been accepted to Hogwarts. This is where we learn that Minerva McGonagall is the deputy headmistress, but he finally gets to read his letter. So it's very sweet. So at this point, Petunia is just adamant that he is not going to the school. She starts talking about her sister and how her and her new husband got blown up, which just, ooh, that's so frustrating because I'm pretty sure Dumbledore probably explained that they were murdered. They weren't just blown up. I don't know. It just bothered me how she worded that. It really says a lot about her character and how she is just so dismissive of her sister's murder. It's just, she almost kind of feels like, well, she got to be a witch, she got what she wanted, she got what she deserved. It just, painful. And Hagrid starts trying to tell Harry about Voldemort, and he can't even spell it. It's just so precious. So he finally just comes out and says it, but then tells him, everybody just says, who, don't make me say it again. But I think, that was a really sweet moment for Hagrid to really try to help Harry understand, because he realizes Harry knows nothing, and he doesn't try to beat around the bush. He tries to give Harry as much information that he possibly knows. And I think that is so sweet and very helpful and something that Harry needs in his life. And that is something that he is not going to get after this moment. All the adults in his life are just going to lie to him pretty much until he's practically an adult himself. It's mentioned that Harry's parents are head girl and head boy in their day. Here is what Hagrid tells them. I'm not sure if that was a mistake on J.K. Rowling's behalf, because later we learned that James wasn't even a prefect, and I thought that what we learned from future books is that you have to be a prefect in order to become head boy. Like, only head boy and head girl are chosen out of prefects. So I kind of wondered if this is something that she kind of backtracked on, because I know she didn't have all of the books written when she first put out the series. So I did notice that, and I've always kind of been curious as to why it's said that they're head boy and girl. So Vernon interrupts Hagrid to complain about the magic and how they tried to cure him and all this stuff, and he just doesn't know when to stop talking. So Hagrid has to threaten him with his umbrella, his pink umbrella that we learn has the broken parts of his wand in it. It's just funny to me because just Vernon doesn't know when to shut up. Hagrid is talking about Voldemort and how some people say he died, and he says codswallop. In my opinion, I love that word. I read this book when I was like 12 or 13, and codswallop immediately became one of my favorite words, and I still say it to this day. So Hagrid also mentions people coming out of trances, and that's indicative of people, like their imperious curses being lifted. So I think that is kind of cool that she kind of puts this little tidbit that Hagrid talks about the trances and stuff. But he didn't go all the way through school, so that's just how he words it. So finally, Vernon loses his temper and says that he's not going to let some crackpot old fool teach Harry magic tricks. And Hagrid loses it. He loses his temper. He says to never insult Albus Dumbledore in front of him. So he takes his pink umbrella and he points it at Dudley. And Dudley grows a pig's tail. So what I do slightly have a problem with is the fact, and I think the movie does it a little bit better, because here Uncle Vernon is the one that talks shit about Albus Dumbledore, but Hagrid punishes Dudley, and I find that an interesting choice. He doesn't do it to Vernon himself, he does it to the child in the room. In the movie, it's kind of like Dudley is eating the cake because he's supposed to be so fat, which we can talk about the body shaming in this book. It's a definite problem, but he's supposed to be so fat and hungry and childish that he's eating Harry's cake, and that's why Hagrid said that he wanted to turn him into a pig, but he only got a curly tail. So, but in the book, he's doing it in response to Uncle Vernon, and he does it to Dudley instead. Let's talk about it. Another thing that I kind of thought about was maybe the trace, and I'm not sure if it's because Hagrid didn't actually do a full spell because it's a broken wand, or if it's because Harry doesn't have a wand, kind of like when parents have children. So maybe it was just kind of an excuse because Hagrid is with Harry, but Hagrid's expelled. We learned that in a couple paragraphs that he's expelled, and that's why he doesn't have a wand. So I'm not really sure how that works with the trace. I don't know if it's because Harry doesn't have his wand, and even though, and I guess since Hagrid, he's not supposed to be using magic either, so maybe they just assume that it's accidental magic that Harry's doing. I don't know. The trace is always really weird, and people have a lot of back and forth over the trace itself on how it works and stuff, and I'd like to discuss that as the books go. That's one of those things that I'd like to discuss. So after all of this, they are going to settle down for the night because tomorrow they're going to go to Diagon Alley, so Hagrid's just going to stay here in the shack with Harry, and that's where our chapter ends. So let's hear the last sentence. Don't mind if it wriggles a bit. I think I still got a couple of dormice in one of the pockets. Classic Hagrid. Y'all take care.